a man, who they say he murdered 3. Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Way back in time, folks didn't have coffee to get them out of bed in the morning or evening if they're working midnights. Coffee has made shift work doable. It makes all night security guards able to do their jobs. It keeps nurses awake. It allows soldiers to stay in the field. There's more to it than just staying awake. Coffee boosts energy levels, which is one of the main reasons a lot of folks drink the stuff. It has been linked to lower risk of type 2 diabetes, which anything that keeps away the sharp, pointy things is a good idea. Coffee supports brain health. It may not cross the blood-brain barrier, but it enhances the things that do. Coffee promotes weight management. That is, unless you're one of those folks that puts 10 packages of sugar and half a bottle of creamer in each cup. You know, most creamers have more sugar in it than sugar. A half a bottle of creamer, that's a half a bottle way too much. A coffee has been linked to a lower risk of depression. Hey, I'm happy as long as I have a coffee cup in my hand and it's full. I love the taste. Some people drink it for the effects, but I like the taste. The cats are all going nuts as usual, and so I'm having to wrangle them, keep the microphone in place while they run about the den being cats. Coffee has been linked to all kinds of beneficial side effects. It enhances athletics and performance. It increases longevity. The way I drink coffee, I should live forever. I'm not too sure where Julio got the idea, but he decided he wanted to make real coffee one day, many, many years ago. He loaded up a giant tricycle with coffee making stuff and he rolled it into a farmer's market and sold coffee. Apparently, it was a hit because the next thing you know, he opened a little shop in downtown Laredo. From the little shop, he moved into a ginormous shop, and from there, he moved over to 4501 McPherson, where he is today. If you can't get there from there, you can always get your coffee at organicmancoffeetrike.shop. It's only the best coffee in the universe. I think it was Arturo that suggested I do a show about time travel, or it might have been somebody that listens to me on Arkanasa that said so, and he was just passing it on. I was only half awake when we were having that conversation. I was between coffee cups. As usual, my computer had to go and die on me, and so I've spent half of this week just trying to recover passwords. It's amazing how many passwords you need to function in today's world, and how many of them say, "Oh, you can't use that one. It's got too many words in it. Or, you've got to have more letters, more special characters. You got to have numbers and capitals." And really, who comes up with this stuff? I have tried to use the same password for everything. It doesn't work. So anyway, getting back to Arturo, somebody on Arkanasa said that I should do a show on time travel, possibly because I talked about time slips the other day. I did a show about John Teeter back in 2016. It's been a while, a few weeks. I also did another show on time travel back in 2022. My, how time is flying by. Time travel is fun and confusing. Just trying to get the dates in the correct order is a mind boggling endeavor. So I just ran with what I had. First off, is time travel even possible? There's quite a conundrum when dealing with this subject. In order for time travel to work, in my mind, everything from as far back as time began, right up until the last moment, the restaurant at the end of the universe, right up until that moment, everything has to be happening constantly forever. That day I knocked my Art Bell coffee cup off the desk has to be going on as if time has stopped. If I had the power, I could go back, grab my cup before I hit it with my elbow, and I would still have my Art Bell coffee cup. Both of them. Well, the cat's knocked one over. Are all those little events happening as if caught on a still photograph? Photograph? What the heck is a photograph? I'm making up words again. A photograph. Now I'm going to hear people out in the public saying that. A photograph, and all we need to do is find that right image. Time travel would have to be very precise to find all those little tiny moments and make up a day. Or would time travel be more like a guess on the time, the day, the week, the month? Could you jump back or ahead in time, but only within, say, so many weeks of the time you're looking for? Could you go back to 1963, but you couldn't go to the exact month or day you wanted? Then you have to kill time waiting for the time to move forward. In the movies, they usually have a digital clock with the exact time displayed. Would a clock have any bearing on time travel, since time is kind of a manufactured thing? Ancient Egyptians came up with the 24-hour day by looking at their hand. There are 12 finger joints on each hand, 3 on each finger. You use the thumb to count, so it doesn't count. Since you have 2 hands, they came up with a 24-hour day. If you've got 6 fingers on each hand, that means your day is going to be a lot longer. In the movies, they can always go back to the time that they wish, but is that really going to happen? Our idea of time might not coincide with the universe's idea of time. You know, that whole 40 days and 40 nights in the Bible? That does not mean more than 39 and less than 41. It just means longer than a month, but not quite a year. 40 days and 40 nights could mean 60 days. If you did build a time machine, how do you control it? Will a digital clock tell the machine that you want to go back to, say, Dallas, November 22nd, 1963, if this time and date is your destination? So you can have definitive proof on who killed Kennedy. And then, if you did get the proof, how are you going to bring it forward? Let's say you go back in time and you're standing there in Dealey Plaza and you click a photograph with your cell phone. Well, no, that ain't going to cut it. You go to a store and you buy a camera and you click a photograph of President Kennedy with some guy standing behind him with a rifle. Now, how are you going to get that photo to our time? If you take any pictures or videos, it's going to have to be period correct. You'll need technology from the 60s. Now, once you have a video of the man on the grassy knoll, you'll have to move it forward safely to our time. You can't bring the video with you. It will be too new to use as proof. If you bury the film in the ground, a time will ravage the celluloid and you'll dig up a box of dust. This is what I think about late at night when I should be asleep. To preserve any evidence, to preserve any evidence of who killed Kennedy, you would have to hire someone to be there with the right equipment and the means to preserve it. You'd have to convince them to keep their mouths shut until you're ready to release your hard-earned story. You're writing that 500-page book on who really killed Kennedy. Oh, and how are you going to pay anyone or pay for anything that you need to get your evidence? You'll need money from the 1960s, unless you can take back some gold with you. By taking $3,374 worth of gold back to 1969, you will be carrying $35.25. Now, that's what gold was worth back then. Plus, you're going to have to explain why you have gold, since it wasn't until December 31st, 1974 that U.S. citizens could own gold again. All that government seizing our gold nonsense so they could put it in Fort Knox and then sell it to the elites in Europe. Did I say that out loud? If you're just going back for a look, you only have to worry about not looking out of place. Wear the right clothing. Anything else, and you're in for a lot of headaches and planning. You could try buying a bunch of that cheap gold, bury it in the ground, and then dig it up once you're back in today's date. But how are you going to buy it without the 1960s currency? Science does support some amount of time bending. Albert Einstein's theory of special relativity proposed time is an illusion that moves relative to an observer. An observer traveling near the speed of light will experience time with all of its after effects much more slowly than an observer at rest. That's why astronaut Scott Kelly aged ever so slightly less over the course of a year in orbit than his twin brother who stayed here on Earth. Very slight. Einstein developed his theory of special relativity in 1905, along with his later expansion, the theory of general relativity. It has become one of the foundation tenets of modern physics. Special relativity described the relationship between space and time for objects moving at constant speeds in a straight line. How the heck did he come up with that? I know. Einstein probably drank a lot of coffee. The short version of the theory is deceptively simple. First of all, things are measured in relation to something else. There's no absolute frame of reference. Second, the speed of light is constant. It stays the same no matter what, and no matter where it's measured from. Third, nothing can go faster than the speed of light. Terry Pratchett said, "Light thinks it's the fastest thing in the universe, but no matter how fast light goes, the darkness is always there to greet it." The speed of light is supposed to be as fast as anyone can go. The closer to the speed of light you get, the more energy you'll need until the energy is all used up before you manage to get going 670,616,629 miles an hour. Who measured that? That's the theory. There's no proof. Proof would be hard to come by since you'd have to be traveling at ludicrous speed in order to test the theory. It would probably be as black as a politician's heart since no light could catch up with you. You'd have to go by feel. You'd have to learn how to use your fingertips in the dark like a blind person. Back when Art Bell was on the radio, you were limited on what to listen to on the midnight shifts. Once Art was on, it was difficult to actually do the job. The show was so fascinating on some occasions that getting out to check a landing or question some suspicious looking guy, well, it interrupted the show. You had radio calls that you had to answer, and they never seemed to call when the commercials were on. No, just when the subject being interviewed says, and the truth of this whole matter is, and then the radio operator would call. This led to missing chunks of information. This problem was finally resolved when you could download the show onto CDs. Listen to any time you wished and at any place. As long as you had coast to coast on your computer, a CD burner, and a CD player in your unit. Ah, the good old days. CDs. I still have a CD player in my truck. Don't have a CD burner anymore because the computers have all had them taken away. John Titor first appeared in our timeline in July 29th, 1998, when he sent 2 faxes to Art Bell. Before you could text someone, you had to use a fax machine. The 2 faxes told the story of the discovery of time travel in 2034 and the devastation that followed after the Y2K disaster. Remember that fun time? All the computers went kaputski, banks all closed, and the human race was on the brink of... Yeah, it never happened, did it? John Titor said he was an American soldier from the year 2036 who was based in Tampa in Hillsborough County, Florida. He was, or is, time travel makes time confusing. He was, or he is, assigned to a government time travel project. He was sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which he said was needed to debug various legacy computer programs in 2036. Up until this year, I thought nobody could possibly be using old technology to perform any kind of modern work. Then the story of our air traffic control using floppy disks and computers from the 80s came to light. I decided that yes, the government would do such nonsense. They're having to train computer technicians on how to work with floppy disks so they can function as an air traffic controller IT guy. All the scientific experiments conducted during Gemini and Apollo missions is unattainable right now because the magnetic tape used to record the data can't be accessed with modern computers, and nobody thought of hanging on to one of those old reel-to-reel computers. The most expensive film ever recorded was supposedly recorded over to save money. The film from the moon landing, should I say it? The film that we all saw on TV way back when was erased and recorded over to save a few bucks on film. Titor had been selected for this mission specifically because his paternal grandfather was directly involved with the assembly and programming of the 5100. Titor said he was just kind of passing by the year 2000 and he wanted to stop and reclaim some lost items for his family. He also wanted to visit his family living in Florida at the time. Picture this. Sicily, 1932. No, Florida, 2000. It was actually 1990 something, but some guy knocks at the door, and when you open it, he says, "Hi, I'm your family member from the year 2035. I've come here to visit." You going to invite him in or are you going to call the cops? Teeter said that he was trying to alert anyone that would listen about the threat of Crutchfield-Jacobs disease, better known as mad cow, spread through beef products. When questioned by online subscribers, Teeter expressed an interest in mysteries such as UFOs, which he said remained unexplained even in his time. Teeter suggested that UFOs and extraterrestrials might be travelers from much further into the future than his own time, with superior time machines. He said he wanted to divert a coming civil war in the United States. This is the time travel grandfather's paradox. If you go back in time and make any major changes, such as killing your grandfather because he left everything to some politician instead of to you, you would instantly vanish because you never existed. Once you vanished, your grandfather would no longer be dead, and you would be born so you can go back and kill him again. If Teeter came back and made major changes to history, his future would be all jacked up, and the reason for his trip would have never been created. Still, he did say he was here to help stop or change a coming devastating event. He claimed that the Everett-Wheeler model of quantum physics, better known as the many worlds interpretation, was correct. The model says that every possible outcome of a quantum decision occurs in a separate universe. Teeter stated this was the reason the grandfather paradox would not happen. Following the logic of the argument, Teeter would be killing a different John Teeter's grandfather in a timeline other than his. I still don't understand why anybody would want to do that, but that's one of those the Schrodinger's cat thing. Schrodinger was actually making fun of the philosophers who couldn't decide if the cat was alive or dead. Everybody knows cats can be in both states at all times. Just look at how they sleep. Who was it that came up with the whole patricide idea? Parricide and patricide are words used to describe homicide committed by anyone against fathers, mothers, grandfathers, or grandmothers, or any other ancestors. Here we are, learning new words you can use at your next family gathering. Just try to think, how are you going to slip patricide into the conversation next Thanksgiving? John said all paradox is impossible. The Everett-Wheeler-Graham or multiple world theory is correct. All possible quantum states, events, possibilities, and outcomes are real, eventual, and occurring. So everything has happened, everything is happening, and everything is going to happen. The chances of everything happening someplace at some time is a 100%. Teeter said there was going to be a civil war beginning in 2004. The conflict would be about order and rights. The whole mess would begin with civil unrest surrounding the presidential election of that year. Oh, yes, old George W. was elected, and the folks on the left went nuts. Come to think of it, they go nuts every time they lose an election. Must be something in their DNA. I'm pretty sure the U.S. didn't break out in a civil war, at least not in our timeline. Hey, maybe John Teeter was successful. Teeter also said as a result of the war, the United States would split into 5 regions based on various factors and military objectives. The Civil War, according to John, would end in 2015 with a brief but intense World War III. Well, once again, California wants to secede from the Union. That would be great. Uh, what does California have besides Bill that I even consider useful? I do have some listeners out there. Bill, one of them. Yes, California wants to be their own country. Too bad they're pretty much broke. Maybe they could join Mexico, but I don't think Mexico would take them. Too many hippies. Uh, More than likely, they'd wind up having to sue the U.S., trying to get some of their money under a perceived slight. And then they could use all that money to build that high speed train that nobody wants or needs. Maybe I'm getting off the subject a bit. As Teeter brought more attention to himself, folks began to say that he was mixing things up. No one named John Teeter and no family named Teeter is known to exist. Well, he probably was using a pseudonym. The story has been called inconsistent as contradictions between statements in different times have been observed. Holding the many worlds interpretation as being correct, Teeter said his mission as a time traveler was to shape a timeline in which many chaotic events of his time, including World War III and the Civil War in the U.S., never happened. Well, they didn't happen in our timeline. Like I said, maybe he was successful. How did he do it? Teeter described his time machine as on several occasions. In an early post, he described it as a stationary mass temporal displacement unit powered by 2 top spin dual positive singularities. If anybody understands any of that, put a comment in the put a note in the comments. He said that these dual spinning top singularities are what canceled out time. Not a time and relative dimensions in space thing. As for those top spin dual positive singularities, the Nazi Bell used 2 rotating masses going in opposite directions to cancel out gravity and possibly move through time. They used mercury, since it's such a heavy liquid metal, as the mass needed. One of Teeter's earliest assertions was that CERN would discover the basis for time travel sometime around 2001, with the creation of miniature black holes about half a year after his departure. The boys in the white lab coats tell us this didn't happen. Like that sacrifice seen in front of the Shiva statue never happened. Who are you going to believe, them or your lying eyes? I'm sure the folks in charge would have told us if they did open a portal to some dark forces wanting to come take over our planet. That's why the CERN emblem looks so much like the number 666. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Teeter said the last Olympics would be held in 2004. Well, this hasn't come true either, but maybe knowing something was about to happen, or not happen, was enough to change our course, and now in some other universe, they save all that time and money on a bunch of athletes that hate our country anyway. Why do we send people all over the world just to disrespect our flag? Inquiring minds want to know. Folks love to point out all the predictions that didn't occur. Now, this could also be due to knowing. Sending an entire body through time sounds like a lot of work, and the outcome won't benefit the folks sending them. Any attempt to alter the future will only benefit people living in other universes. So why bother? Unless the folks in these other universes discover that we did something for their benefit and now it's time to reciprocate. Except, once again, a new timeline would be established with zero benefits to us. Time travel sounds as if it's only good for creating new timelines and not fixing mistakes from our past. Sending a human or two through time would require an enormous amount of energy, and you run the risk of them creating dozens of, not hundreds, of alternative timelines. Is there a limit as to how many timelines can exist? How will we know right up until somebody makes the very last one manageable by the universe and suddenly weird things start to happen? Dogs and cats living together, things like that. This is, of course, if the theories on time travel are correct. What if you can go back and kill your grandfather and yet somehow stay alive? What is truly scary is what if you can go back and change the future? Say you went back to April 20th, 1889, and you tracked down a newborn child named Schicklgruber, and you kill him. This is a conundrum because at that time in his life, Hitler is innocent of any crimes. Hey, he's just been born. About the only crime he's committed is probably pooping in his diaper. But we're not going to let a little minor technicality get in the way of the greater good. Kill Hitler, most folks will say. Never mind all the minor things that will be affected. If Hitler never rose to power and drugged Germany out of its depression, would the entire country have imploded, sinking so deep into debt they are soon annexed by surrounding countries? It's for the good of the world, some would say. Without the entire world trying to kill each other, we might never have developed computers to the extreme that we have them today. The rush to create a thinking machine was mostly in order to decrypt the German Enigma machine, which was a far advanced coding device allowing the Nazis to communicate all over the world without us knowing what they were saying. I'm sure there would have eventually been computers, but war puts a lot of importance into mundane things like food, clothing, things to stop bleeding. Glue holds the world together, and superglue holds the super world together. A Dr. Harry Coover was working for Kodak trying to invent a better gun sight when he accidentally stuck two things together and he found that they were now inseparable. He had discovered superglue, which keeps a lot of marriages together. If somebody, who shall remain unnamed, accidentally breaks something really valuable belonging to the other half of the marriage, the secret to long and happy marriage is learn how to glue things back together. Had von Braun not been trying to help the Nazis win the war, he might never have developed satellites and rockets, or we, not he. We may never have developed satellites or rockets. Oh, yes, rockets had been around for hundreds of years, but it took a certain kind of fanatic using slave labor in the quest for faster, stronger guided missiles. Radar and sonar were both developed to find and kill the enemy before they could sneak up and kill us. Some bright individual might have thought this was a great way to keep airplanes from running into each other, but, well, looking at Washington, D.C. right now, they're not doing a very good job. It doesn't work the same in the civilian world as it does in the military. There's just something very motivating about trying to invent something when people are trying to kill you. There might never have been a nation of Israel. If you think this was a bad idea, I suggest you go listen to someone else. Israel, as a modern nation, kind of was created to send all of those displaced Jews somewhere so a lot of other countries wouldn't have to take them in. And just look at all the great inventions coming out of that one small section of the Middle East. If somebody did go back in time to kill Hitler, what would the planet look like today? Or is the timeline that we live in so well defined these things would have come about regardless? Say Hitler didn't do it, maybe one of his minions would have been the guy that they chose. I don't believe in predestiny. If the idea were true, no one and nothing happening would mean anything. You wouldn't have to try being a good person because destiny has already mapped out your life. You're destined to do good or bad. If going back to change our course is a non starter, how about just going back to have a look? Sending just an image through time may require a lot less power and eliminate the possibility of messing things up. A machine like a TV set was built in Italy back in the 1960s. The chronovisor is said to be a device that gives the user the ability to see through time. Though the existence of the chronovisor has never been proven, like a lot of deep dark secrets, in a 2002 book by Vatican priest Father Francis Brunet, he says it was. According to Brunet, the chronovisor was developed by Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk, years before it was ever shown to most folks. Ernetti kept the device secret until the early 60s when he confided in Brunet and told him that 12 scientists, including former physicist Enrique Fermi and former Nazi scientist Werner von Braun, helped him make it. It was made of cathode rays, antenna, and metal that received sound and light signals in all wavelengths. The chronovisor allowed the team of scientists to document events from the past, including the crucifixion of Jesus. If you search online chronovisor and Jesus, you can find what is said to be pictures of Jesus being murdered. The machine could validate the teachings of the Bible simply by providing a first-hand look into the past. Hey, how about going back and seeing Jesus smiling and laughing and having a good time instead? Nobody ever does that. They just want to see the evil, nasty, horrible, painful stuff. The main story of the chronovisor is Brunet's 2002 book, Le Nuovo Misteri del Vatican. And I do not speak Italian. I thought about learning to speak Italian, but I thought first I should learn to speak English. In it, Brunet explains how he met Father Ernetti on a boat ride across the Venice Grand Canal in the 60s. Like Brunet, Ernetti was well versed in the history of ancient languages, which made for natural conversation. After all the normal pleasantries had gone over, Ernetti began to talk about science. Brune had been expounding on the many ways in which the Christian Bible could be interpreted when Ernetti suggested that he had access to the truth by way of a time traveling device. Ernetti said he and a group of renowned scientists came together in a mutual quest to uncover the past. One scientist being Fermi, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1938, and another the ex-Nazi von Braun, whose work at NASA got America to the moon. You already know what I think about that. According to Ernetti, the device had several antennae, 3 of which were made of mysterious metals that picked up sound and light waves across their entire respective spectrums. A direction finder on the device was tuned into a specific era on that they wanted to view, while a screen displayed it and recording device captured the footage. Probably an old VHS tape player. No, they didn't have VHS in the 60s. Wonder what they recorded it on. The chronovisor was thus more of a window into the past than a time machine. Ernetti said it worked like a television, catching echoes from days long ago that had been floating in space, and he said he had seen some astonishing things. Ernetti recounted how he witnessed Marcus Tullius Cicero's speech to the Roman Senate in 60 BC. Ernetti made additional, increasingly bolder claims, such as having observed Jesus' crucifixion. From the founding of the Roman Empire to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Ernetti said he and his team had taken a peek into some of the most important events mentioned in the Bible. May 2nd, 1972, an Italian publication called La Domenica del Corriere. Yep, I still don't speak Italian. Published his claim, titled A Machine That Photographs the Past Has Finally Been Invented. Need I say it? Every photograph is from the past, just not very far past. The article covered Ernetti's shocking statements for all of Italy to read. It wasn't until his death on April 8th, 1994, that the naysayers came out of the woodwork. It's always that way. Skeptics stay away from the people that they want to deride. All 13 of those men who claim to have been dressed up like Bigfoot so that Roger Patterson could catch the P&G film waited until he was dead before they came forward to say anything. I'd like to know why all 13 of these men claim to have been dressed like a female Bigfoot. Now that's a cryptid form of cross-dressing. Having a TV that showed the past would be right up there with what is known as a residual haunting. An image that plays over and over, never changing because you're seeing the past. To be able to build anything as complex and involved as a time machine, it's going to take a lot of money and resources that few people have. The usual suspects involved in these experiments is a government of some kind, or the elites of the world. Andrew Basiago says he was involved in government shenanigans while in Project Pegasus. According to Basiago, between 1962 and 1972, the U.S. government ran a clandestine operation called Project Pegasus. The program led to the successful development of a number of highly advanced technologies, including teleportation, highly advanced time travel, holographic time travel, He said the program was run jointly by the CIA and DARPA and was used to contact former presidents, teleport to Mars, and maintain a rapport with extraterrestrials. DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Who comes up with these names? How about just calling them the boys in the white lab coats making weird things? They are the folks doing research and development for the United States Department of Defense. Things like killer robots and self aware computers and nanobots that can self replicate. Just what we need. Didn't they watch that movie? Beginning when he was just a child, Basiago was selected from a group of psychically gifted children to become a time traveling liaison who would go on to meet historical and future dignitaries, as well as various extraterrestrials. Basiago said his father had previously worked for Ralph Parsons Engineering Corporation, where he helped develop this technology. When Basiago was brought to participate in his first jump, he said his father had already been time traveling for years using the Curtiss Wright Corporation out of New Jersey. It was here where he was first exposed to the portal he would later use to teleport through time and space. The portal itself, Basiago described as two parentheses-shaped booms that were 8 feet tall and spaced about 10 feet apart. He described the computer configuration from which the portal was being controlled as rudimentary, and it was just plugged into the wall with a normal wall socket. Not your big fancy dryer or stove connector, just a regular old 110 connection. Upon activation, the time-traveling machine created a vortal tunnel from radiant energy that was capable of bending the fabric of reality. This radiation energy was discovered by Nikolai Tesla, whose schematic was posthumously discovered by the government in his New York apartment in 1943. The technology was parlayed into what Basiago calls a plasma confinement chamber, which a user jumped into before being transported to a different moment or place in time. Y'all remember that TV show, The Time Tunnel? Something like that. His first journey teleported him to the state capital in New Mexico, though he remained in the same time period. Later in his life, he says he was able to corroborate the Capitol building as a common location involved in this program from a woman who said that she had seen people materializing there in the past. He continued his training by traveling just a few hours back in time and getting used to the sensation. If you had to go to the bathroom when you jumped into the time machine, and you went back in time, would you still have to go when you got there? Eventually, he would travel back to Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, Washington's tent during the Revolutionary War, and even to the time of Jesus. He says the government had a desire to check the veracity of these historical accounts of these three figures because of their significance to the human race and of the fact that they had been written of extensively. Basiago says he also traveled to the future, to the year 2045, where he was transported to a building made of emerald and tungsten steel. There, he was given a miniature canister of microfilm to be brought back to the 70s, which contained the wealth of knowledge of every historical event until that time. Why microfilm, you may ask? Well, the folks in the future would know that somebody was coming from the past, and they knew that we wouldn't have had the fancy technology in that time of the time traveler, so they had to send it back in a form that was usable. If you're traveling to the future, they should already know you're coming. You may have heard about Basiago when he made waves in the media claiming a man named Obama had been a part of the same teleportation time travel program as he. The news folks did ask about this involvement, and when it was given a no way in heck answer, they just stopped asking. Yeah, that's what the fifth estate is supposed to do. They're supposed to just ask and go with whatever the answer is. None of that digging, none of that examining evidence, none of that let's find out if this guy is telling the truth or not. Nah, okay, he said no, that's good enough. If the same press people that were interviewing Basiago and Obama at that time had been around when Richard Nixon and the Watergate conspiracy was going on, the whole Watergate situation would have simply been swept under the White House rug. According to Basiago, Obama had gone by his original name, Barry Soetoro, his original name, and was initially teleported to Mars at the age of 19. Soetoro was sent on his interplanetary mission to communicate with Martian animals and to extraterrestrials living on the red planet. Okay, how do you communicate with Martian animals? He claimed in a 2012 speech that he had definitive photographic evidence of intelligent life on the planet Mars because he has a photograph of a Martian carving a rock on the planet's surface. Basiago didn't make it through the primaries, though he had future knowledge that sometime between 2012 and 2028 he would either become president or vice president. He says this information was divulged to him from members of the CIA. He's running out of time as far as becoming president or vice president. It's almost 2028. Isn't that a shocker? Time is traveling, but it's traveling forward. In 2016 election, Basiago was unable to get his name on the ballot in all 50 states due to the exorbitant cost of running in a presidential election, and his party held all the strings. When people say anyone can become president, they really mean anyone with millions of dollars or friends with tons of money and connections to folks willing to help get them elected so they'll be forever in debt to them. He says it would have cost $5 million and he couldn't come up with that money. Therefore, he ran as an independent, write-in candidate. I wonder how many people actually voted for him. Without party support, most candidates are pretty much dead in the water. Unlike other candidates, Basiago did post a very detailed layout of his presidential platform. He had 100 policies that he intended to enact once he was elected. The unwavering guidelines promised to usher in a new era of truth, reform, and innovation in America. Well, as you can see, anyone trying to do that today runs into some major roadblocks in Washington. Those folks in Washington don't like it when you try to change things. The first measure Basiago wanted to enact upon taking office was to declassify all the technology relating to quantum transportation and American time travel technology. This would include the chronovisor, the holographic teleportation machine that he says he used in order to speak to George Washington. He claims to be that guy that showed up in Washington's tent and showed him what the United States was going to look for. Although he says time travel for every citizen would create a universe way too chaotic, Basiago did believe that everyone should have access to teleportation. It would solve all of our transportation shortcomings. I can see a huge problem right here along the border. People jumping back and forth from Mexico to the US, bringing in all kinds of illegal substances. I think this is why the flying cars that we were promised way back when I was growing up never came about. Crossing the border would be easy anywhere from Brownsville to San Diego or from Blaine to Calais. You're pretty much always moving through time at the same speed. We all have the same amount of time each and every day. Some use it to the fullest, while others prefer to get little done, waiting for somebody else to solve all of the problems of the world. Even a lot of history books are well off the mark. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead there on my notes. You may be able to travel through time using just your mind, but how would you know that what you saw was real or just your imagination? If you read a book, you have a really good imagination, you can look at this as time travel. The trouble is, the writer must have had a right storyline without embellishing it to make for a better story. Even a lot of history books are off the mark. At the end of World War II, a certain owner of a car company, a huge car company with an F in the name, paid the U.S. Congress thousands of dollars so that he could hold the sole rights to tell the world what just happened. Even with thousands of soldiers coming home with the true version, the made up version became the truth, and all those soldiers were suffering from combat fatigue. History is written by the guy with the most gold. If, on the other hand, you can focus on moving back or forward through time, now that would be worth looking into. In psychology, mental time travel is the capacity to mentally reconstruct personal events from the past as well as the future. Imagine the possible scenario in the future. You could have a look see what the winning lottery number is going to be. The term was coined by Thomas Suddendorf, Michael Kerbalis. They were both building on Endel Tulving's works on episodic memory. Too many big words there. Too many hard names to pronounce. Tulving originally suggested that episodic memory involved a kind of self-knowing consciousness that required the first-person subjective experience of previously living events, whereas semantic memory is associated with consciousness but does not require such mental simulation. Now, mental time travel has been studied by psychologists, cognitive neuroscientists, philosophers, and a variety of other academic disciplines. Major areas of interest include the nature of the relationship between memory and foresight, the evolution of the ability, its development in young children, its underlying brain mechanisms, as well as its potential link to consciousness and free will. This kind of time travel is somewhat, well, no, it's a whole lot, limiting. If you're the only one seeing the past or the future, it's only as good as what you think it is. You could say it's all in your mind. There are other scientific theories about time travel, including physics that arise around wormholes, black holes, and string theory. Wormholes are theoretical tunnels through the fabric of space-time that could connect different moments or locations in reality to others. Also known as Einstein-Rosen bridges or white holes, as opposed to black holes. They speculate about wormholes abound. In 1935, Eisenhower In 1935, Einstein and physicist Nathan Rosen proposed the concept of bridges through space time, now called Einstein Rosen bridges. These hypothetical tunnels could, in theory, connect distant parts of the universe or even to different times. Later, physicist Kip Thorne and his colleagues popularized the idea of traversable wormholes, a wormhole that could be crossed without being instantly destroyed. A black hole cannot be traversed because of the event horizon. Uh, that's the very edge of the gravity field. As you cross the horizon, the part of your body over the edge will suddenly accelerate to a ridiculous speed, while the rest of you is still going rather slowly. Talk about a split personality. Well, a split person. A traversable wormhole not have this gravitational pull. Thorne's work was used to advise the creators of the movie Interstellar to make the science as accurate as possible. In theory, if one end of a wormhole were accelerated to near light speed and then brought back, the two ends could experience time differentially, creating a time machine. Step into one end, and you would come out at a different time on the other end. For a wormhole to stay open and not collapse instantly, it would need something called exotic matter. That's not dark matter, that's something else. Exotic matter isn't just weird, it possesses negative energy density, something that behaves opposite to normal matter or energy. Kind of the yin and yang of energy and matter. Well, consider this. Since you have to have one in order to have the other, if you have mass and energy, shouldn't you have to have negative mass and negative energy? I'm not a physicist. I don't even play one. Quantum physics opened another door to time travel. While general relativity deals with gravity, and large gravity. That sounds like something bad and evil. Anyway, uh, quantum physics opens another door to time travel. While general relativity deals with gravity and large scale structures in space time, quantum mechanics rules the tiny world of particles. Reconciling the two is one of the biggest challenges in modern physics. Some theories in quantum gravity, like loop quantum gravity or string theory, might eventually prove a framework for understanding time travel. But we're not there yet. Quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement, where two particles share a connection no matter how far apart they are. Einstein referred to this as spooky action at a distance. It's kind of an instantaneous communication. Some scientists, including Thorne and his collaborators, have speculated that entanglement could be linked to wormholes in a theory known as ER equals EPR. Kind of like that equals MC squared and all. I am not a physicist. I never was. When math started using letters, I stopped going to school. They had lost me. Time travel may or may not be possible depending on who you listen to. Art Bell had guests on all the time with some unbelievable stories that may have been true. How about the most famous time traveler of all time? That's not too redundant. Al Bielek. Al Bielek was born 1927. His first memories, he told Art Bell, was when he was 9 months old. He was at a family Christmas party, and he said he remembers and he understood what other people were saying. As Al went through grade school, he became known as a walking encyclopedia. Before graduating high school, he took an electronics test, and he was the only one who passed. Well, the Navy was looking for good men like him, so they took him on as a electronics physicist. While working at the Philadelphia shipyards, Al, known at the time as Ed Cameron, and his brother were both on board a ship that at the time did not have a name. The ship hadn't been christened yet. It was simply known as DE 173. The experiments went wrong and the destroyer Escort was transported to the Norfolk, Virginia shipyard. The Navy wasn't about to allow a small thing like vanishing ships get in the way of finding new technology, so they pressed ahead. Nikola Tesla said, "I'm not getting involved in this, it's too dangerous," and he stepped aside. That's when Van Neumann was brought into the experiments. They kept trying to make a ship invisible, and instead what they did was they make a ship travel through time. Al was sent back, or correction, Al went forward in time to the year 2137, where he met our future humans. They told him a whole bunch of things about the coming world, and then they sent him back in time to 1983, where he ran into Dr. John Van Neumann at Camp Hero. Van Neumann was waiting for Al, said he'd been waiting for him since 1943 when their experiment had gone south. Al and his brother were now going to be sent back to 1943 in order to shut down, using whatever means they possible, the generators that were causing the DE 173 to continue moving through time. It was causing all kinds of havoc. Al then returned to 1983, and he was regressed back to 1927, where this whole adventure began once more. This time, Al completed his education, and he took on various vocations in the field of electronics, not joining the Navy. While contracting for various military entities, the people who worked with him began to reveal the truth about the involvement with extraterrestrials and PSYOPs programs. Strange things started to happen to Al soon after. While in Hawaii, 1956, he was recruited into the Montauk Project. Al would work his normal job in California and take an underground subway to Montauk, Long Island, where he would work on the Montauk Project. Talk about a high-speed underground train. According to Al, this trip only took a few minutes, not hours. After the time tunnel had been perfected, he would simply be teleported to the underground base and then return to his apartment in California. During the 1970s, Al was the program director of psychics who manned the Montauk Chair. Since the Montauk Boys were a key program at Montauk, Al had some influence with the Montauk Boys program. If you want to know more about that, watch the video, The Montauk Project by Christopher Garetano. Let me warn you, it is not for children. His duties were to handle the operations of mind control program. He was in regular contact with Duncan Cameron and Preston Nichols. Stuart Swerdlow was one of the Montauk Boys programmed under Al Bielek. January 1988, after seeing the movie The Philadelphia Experiment, his memories started to come back. Al believes that his involvement with the Montauk ended with that revelation. Over time and through meetings with Preston Nichol and Duncan Cameron and others, many more memories returned. Ironically, just after his memories returned, Dr. Van Neumann tried to get in touch with him. He had promised Ed Cameron way back that they should get together whenever his memories returned. Al made the decision to go public with the information about his involvement at Montauk and the Philadelphia experiment in 1989. He was on Art Bell, he was on dozens of shows, dozens of podcasts, and I talked about him on this show as well. Hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Like I said, time travel can be confusing. Whether or not it is possible, that's for you to decide. If you enjoyed tonight's show, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell people you're standing in line behind in the grocery store. They should be listening to Strange Things with Chris James. Until next Saturday, and there's my cat.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man who they say he murdered 3? Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.